Jason Belzer here for Athletic Director U. I'm joined today by two Atlantic 10 athletic directors, Ryan Bamford from the University of Massachusetts and Ed McLaughlin from Virginia Commonwealth University. Thank you for joining me today, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So I'd like to cover a couple of different topics here, but looking at building sustainable, successful programs. Both of you recently hired new basketball coaches. Ed, you've made a couple of hires as the AD at VCU. Mm-hmm. What goes into building a program, not just for a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 year successful run, but building a sustainable program that may last even longer than the coach that's there or even yourself as an AD? What do you look for in a coach, first of all? And what resources need to be in place? How do you facilitate that process of ensuring that the coach is scheduling the right way, that the university is scheduling the right way in order to get the program out there to the recruiting of athletes? Let's take it from a 10,000-foot perspective and then come down to the micro.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is you need to know who you are and what you're trying to accomplish. That will really determine the fit of who you hire. Fit is by far the most important part of it, and it's hard to label what that looks like. It's hard to really quantify that at times, but we really have tried to make sure we find someone who understands us, who understands what we're trying to accomplish, what some of our limitations are, but we're going to invest as much as humanly possible to be an elite program nationally and what we need to do with those and make sure someone's going to be able to take what we give them and then go forward. Now, a lot of that is, you talked about scheduling is a really important piece of it. It's not the most important piece, but it's probably the hardest one at our level. But it's the scheduling part, it's who you're going to recruit and how you're going to be in the community. That to me is so much more important than how you're going to play, right? I mean, like, if you're interviewing to be a head coach or you're interviewing head coaches, you have to believe they know the X's and O's part of it. Sure. At least you hope they do. And if you've done your homework on them, you can tell if they can X and O or not. But you're going to be able to do all those things within our community to be a good steward of what our program is and really be able to make sure that you can represent us in the best way with when they go into the homes of young men and women and try to get them to come to VCU. It's a really hard thing. We've been fortunate and we've had folks that were within our program before that we've been able to hire. But when you get to a certain point in your program, and you're going through that now, you have to make sure you have folks who really understand and who want the job. And I think that's part of that's part of when you kind of goes sort of unnoticed at times, but you're going to want someone who's going to come in and just be really, really happy and excited with what you have. Yeah. And if someone comes in and starts complaining in the second week, well, we don't have this, we don't have that, they really didn't want the job. They wanted a job, but they might not have wanted your job.
Yeah, I think you make a good point to start with, too. You got to know who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really important, your identity. You've got to know what the fit is for you. The life cycle of the program that you're in. Where are you? Are you coming from a situation where you've lost a coach to a Power 5 job? Or, and the one thing we give a lot of credit to VCU and Dayton and others who have kept it going. I think sustaining that success is one of the hardest things to do. Yeah. And they're a great model for us to look at to say, great, we want to get to the mountaintop, but how do you stay there? Especially in a really competitive league like the A10, and understanding what your resources are, the resources that impact winning the most, and really, making sure that you're contributing as much as you can to those resources for your next coach. And for us, it's getting into the top, 4 of the league where we think we got a chance to go to postseason, and it's what they've been able to do. And understanding what our fit is and what the fit is for a coach, but also where we fit in the basketball landscape. And we're all aspirational. We all want to win championships, but even moving beyond the A10, which is something that I think our league can do, that's certainly something that we key on as well in our hires and the way that we look at our basketball program especially.
Sure. And I think as we all go forward in our jobs, even at the Atlantic 10 level, they become really big jobs and well-paying jobs. I think as we move forward, as we look at it, who can also give us that level of consistency? Yeah. If you look at the best basketball programs who are not Power 5s over the last 5-10 years or so, I mean, it's been folks who have been there. It's Mark Few at Gonzaga, Jay Wright, what he's done at Villanova is incredible. Greg Marshall at Wichita. I mean, they've been there, and the consistency of the kids they're recruiting, and they're not having a recruiting turnover in terms of losing classes. that for us is sort of the next step as we go forward. And I really do believe Mike Rhodes, our new coach, will be there to do that. But you hire Matt, and he's someone who you think can be there for a while.
Yeah.
And who can be there, and I think he will. Create that level of success. That's really sustaining it and validating it once you have success is probably the hardest thing any of us try to do.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really kind of been fun to build a program with Matt, and we really took a deep dive into what was going to allow us to be successful, and we've contributed in a way from a resource perspective that we think we can. And I think Matt's the right leader for us. And now the challenge is as you start to have that success is sustaining it and then keeping people engaged in what you have and making sure, we went through a little bit of a lull period and making sure that people don't get apathetic about your product and about what you're asking them to consume, 17 home games a year, which is a lot. And so, I think all of those things contribute to a winning program and winning environment. And I think when you're trying to hire that next coach or trying to look for somebody who's going to take your program to the next level or sustain a program, you've got to have that consistency and make sure that it fits with your brand. And that's a huge part of this thing.
Ryan, when you took over, first time AD, came to University of Massachusetts, there's a lot of great tradition there. But the program hasn't been, from a basketball standpoint, football's been struggling, some of the other sports have been doing well. The program hasn't been where it was maybe 20 years ago or 10 years ago even. How do you assess the program coming in, what you need to turn around University of Massachusetts? And Ed, to you, VCU is a relative newcomer to the Atlantic 10. It's made a move up to conferences, so a little bit of a different perspective, carrying a lot of success with it, but in kind of in a new world and in the bloody waters, as they say, turbulent waters, because now you're competing with bigger institutions for better recruits, for donor money, all of that. So a little bit of different perspectives, but talk to me about how when you came into Massachusetts, what you looked at, and what you look at today. I mean, it's an ongoing project, right? You've only been there a year, it's going to take time. What are some of the things that you're doing? And then how do you bring in your coaches and make sure that each one of your programs is falling along with that kind of strategic plan that you're laying out for this?
Yeah, I think the environment, you've got to look at the environment you're in. What we were 20 years ago under Coach Calipari, obviously he was a change agent for the University of Massachusetts. He's a dynamic individual as we know him even today. Understanding what he went through and making that phone call and really digesting, understanding, analyzing those things, the things that made it go then. But understanding the environment that we're in now and that, we're in a great league that if you're successful in our league, you're going to be successful nationally. That's a great spot to be in when you're recruiting. One of the things that we did at the university just prior to me arriving was we invested in a facility that's been a real difference maker for us, a $30 million practice facility. You've got to be able to compete. If you're going to get top 150, 200 level players, you've got to be able to compete with the facility reach. And we've invested in that. We've invested in our arena. As we look to get back to the 20-year mark, from when we had Marcus Camby and John Calipari on our campus, I think for us, it's investing those things that are going to affect winning and not focusing on the things that don't. And I think one of the things when I got to UMass is we really, our resource allocation was a little bit disjointed in the things that we were trying to do to approach a winning program in the classroom, in the community, and obviously on the court. And so we've readjusted those things. And with that, we've readjusted our priorities. And now we have expectations to compete at the top of the level. And I think that just comes by looking at the environment, scaling yourself in the right way, and then going out and attacking it. And we've done that now with our new coach, Matt McLaughlin, and excited about where we can go based on the things we're contributing to that program.
Sure. Ed?
Yeah, I mean, we had an interesting time, right? I mean, we went to the Final Four in 2011 and won the CAA again in 12, and then decided to move up in conferences. And it's funny, the perspective you bring. I mean, I think our fans were really nervous that the basketball in the Atlantic 10 wasn't going to be as good as the CAA, and it's been all that and better and better and better. I mean, but our thing was, as we start to evolve, like how do we measure ourselves against the top 25 programs in the country? And that goes everything from facility, as Ryan said. We built a basketball practice facility, which has been great for us and for our student athletes. But how do you schedule? What resources are you doing in terms of charters, in terms of your coaches' salaries, in terms of assistants? We try to get into the nitty gritty of it as much as possible to know what everyone else at that level is doing. My first conversation with my president was, well, if you want us to be able to beat Kansas, if you want us to be able to beat teams like that, we have to put in what they do. We have to be able to consider ourselves that way, because the only way you get it is if you get those guys who are top 100 guys. You can keep a coach and do those things. And you know, we were pretty lucky. We had a guy who's a rock star, a basketball coach for a while. I mean, he's, you know, not many coaches go by one name, right? And Shaka certainly does. But he had great success. But I think the key part of it was we were all in it together. I mean, you know, he and I talked a lot about what we need to do every single day to keep moving our program forward. And he would talk to other coaches, and I would talk to other ADs, and just try to make sure we got that so we can keep the thing moving forward all the time. Because if you don't do that, from your program's perspective, in terms of the top 25, you're going to fall back. I mean, if you try to stay what it is, you're falling back, and it's going to be really hard. And I think we've been lucky enough that we've invested, you know, close to $1 million every single year that I've been there in terms of making sure our program needs to stay where it is, and we've been lucky that it's worked.
Sure. So you just hit upon it a little bit, but I think it's the age-old question: is the chicken or the egg? Is talent more important when it comes to hiring a coach, building a staff, administratively? Is it resources? Is it, you know, we can say it's a combination of both, but some would argue I can put a coach in any situation, he's going to be successful, or I can put any coach in this situation and he's not going to be successful because he doesn't have the resources to do that. What do you guys think?
I think our league, I think actually our league's a pretty good indication that you can obviously, you want the combination of all those things, but we've got schools in our league. You know, I look at St. Bonaventure, a very good coach, and Mark Schmidt. They don't have all the resources that VCU or UMass has, but they've been at the top of the league for a number of years now because of great coaching acumen. Obviously, he's recruited well, and that's a tough place to play, and they've taken advantage of their strengths, and I think that can play into it. You've got to be able to get somebody that can get people excited about your product, can obviously recruit, you know, young men that are going to come in and contribute not only to the basketball piece, to your community, be good students, be good community members on campus. And then I think, you know, we're in a league with very good coaches. So your X and O, you got to be good X and O in order to not just exist in our league, but to flourish. And I think that's the one thing that you place an added emphasis on as you're looking at the coaches, and if everybody's got the same talent, what's going to differentiate us? And I think coaching night in and night out in this league is as good as most leagues in Division I, and that's the one thing that I think, you know, we point to say that under 4 timeout, media timeout, who's making the adjustments right then when you're in winning time?
6-minute game.
6-minute game, right?
Yeah,
and so many games in our league come down to that. In so many leagues, but our league especially comes down to that time. Who's going to make the right play? Who's going to make the right call?
Who's going to push the kids' buttons the right way and all that? And you know, I think that as we kind of talked about it at VCU a lot, you have to put it in, or you're not going to be successful, or you'll be successful to a point. But when you have the resources and you have a coach who's really, really good at what he does and can get the kids motivated and invested in what he's trying to accomplish, that's what gets you real success in year-over-year success. And if you look at all the top programs in the country over the last 10 years, they've been doing that in any sport. You know, I mean, it's the coach, they've had that level of a high-level coach being able to do it, and that's hard. It's hard to have that combination. I mean, I think if you look across our league, some of the coaches in our league that may not have necessarily the resources that we have, or maybe even that Dayton has, or some other ones, you know, they can compete because they get some really good coaches. Yeah. I mean, we get some really, really excellent coaches in our league, and finding that's why ADs, you know, that's why we get paid pretty well, probably more than we're ever worth. But you know, being able to pick the right coaches, it's hard. Yeah. But it's really, really important. And you see folks who don't do it, and they cycle right out, even though they're pouring a ton of money into it. In other places, they cycle right out.
I think the sustainability piece, to the first question, the fact that VCU is a good example of when you're winning, to stay there, you have to keep investing. You can't rest on, we won 27 games last year, and that's gonna carry it. No. You got to keep going if you're going to stay there, because you know what, Kansas, Carolina, Duke, the ones we aspire, Villanova, they're still going. They're pumping more and more in. You've got to be able to do that. I know Ed doesn't do it. We don't necessarily always look at our own peers in our league. We look beyond that and try to say, and not just in basketball, in all of our sports, to say, how can we be the best women's soccer program or baseball program? And we look across, you know, who do we really aspire to be? What's our competitive set? And then what are the things that they're doing that we're not, that are making them an investment grade product, or something that people want to consume, including kids that you're recruiting to that program. So I think that's important.
So final question, And I think talking about your entire athletics program, you have well-resourced basketball programs. But does that mean that you may need to sacrifice elsewhere, or maybe not, pick and choose the battles that you fight? I mean, are you investing into cross country as much as you are into your basketball program, as much as you are into your football program versus tennis or track? How do you make that decision? And is it, I got a great track coach, so I'm going to put money there now, and then maybe baseball goes off, I'm going to do that? Or what goes into that decision making?
It's really what your expectations are more than anything. I mean, I think we've tried to, across the board in all of our 17 sports, provide as many resources as we can, but certainly within the framework of what our expectations are. I mean, if we're trying to win a championship, then we should resources every sport in the top 3 in the league. Then we give our coaches a chance to do that. If we're trying to be a national top 25 program, well, then what we resource against the league isn't really that relevant, right? And we look at as much as what's our geography, who are the kids that we can get to come to school here, what resources do we have facility-wise. Those things all kind of factor into it. I'm sure there's like a SWOT analysis or some fancy thing that I really, don't understand. But it's one of those things you kind of have to know who you are, like I said before, but put those resources where you can actually make an impact. I mean, Ryan's got the other part of it. He's got hockey too, which is not in our league, and he's plays in probably the best hockey league in America. And that makes it hard for them. But I think you can have broad-based success, at least at our level, because you can put the resources in and compete for championships and raise some money. Otherwise, we all got to do that. We all have to raise a lot of money. Spend probably 70% of our time as ADs now raising money, which is fine. That's how it is. But you got to raise that money to do it and give the coaches those resources to be relevant. And we look at schools like what's Akron doing in men's soccer, what's Fullerton doing in baseball, the non-Power Fives in Olympic sports who are really, really good, probably exceptional. What are they doing? How do we compare ourselves to them? And do we reasonably have a chance, right? Are we just kind of, do we have the right field and resources and coaches and recruiting and all that, or do we not? And should we really focus on winning championships in our league rather than being at a higher level?
We're very unique because I think we're one of 8 schools in the country that has Division I hockey, FBS football, basketball, and lacrosse, men's lacrosse. And the other ones don't look anything like us, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State. So we're not resourced like they are. So we have to do more with less. To answer your question, we've got 21 sport offerings. There are a lot on the men's side that we're not resourcing. One of Ed's big sports is baseball. They've been very competitive in baseball. We have one full scholarship in baseball. They've got 11.7. I can't expect my coach to go out and win 2 out of 3 games against Ed's VCU team. If we're making the league tournament at the end of the year, then I'm going to tell you I'm going to throw the guy a party because that's a win.
That's a win.
That's a win. But that's it. I mean, your expectations have to match your resources.
It's knowing exactly who you are at that, right? I mean, and it's hard to have some of those difficult conversations at times. But I think what we do, that helps a lot is when we sit down with our coaches in the spring/summer every year and go over what their program expectations are and their program planners, it makes it pretty clear. And if coach says, well, I got 11 freshmen on a team and I expect to win a championship, I'll be the first to say, you're not going to win a championship. It's just not going to happen. That's okay.
Reset the expectations.
Let's reset the expectations so they're clear and we all come to them together. I think that's the hardest part is sometimes coaches get into a situation where they say they want to win a championship, but they don't have what they need. And then the ADs get frustrated that they're not winning. Well, we didn't kind of put it all in to do it. And it's really about how much are you setting the expectations the right way and that the kids can all understand it and buy in. Because if you don't have the student-athlete investment, that's really hard. Yeah. That makes it really hard. And I think the sport that our league kind of struggles with a little bit is women's basketball, and we're still trying to figure that out a little bit. I think we look across the board and think we probably could be a little better in women's basketball for what we're investing in. How can we flip it a little bit to get there? And maybe we need to schedule a little differently, and maybe it's some of those things. But we've had those discussions a lot in our league. Yeah,
I think placing yourself as a league and making sure that everybody's got the same ideals on how to get to where you want to go, and making sure that there's commitment. Because if you've got a couple that are straying from that group-wide commitment, then you're going to be in trouble. You're going to only be as strong as those that are falling behind. And I think for us, that's where I appreciate the colleagues that we have in the A10 and how united we are in a lot of the things that we're going out and resourcing and trying to be good as a league. Because we may not make the NCAA tournament this year, in men's basketball unless we win the league. But I'm hoping that we get as many teams as we can in, and when they're in, we're cheering for them. And we compete against them every single day in recruiting and on the court. But you know, URI, Dayton, VCU, when they're in there, man, run, go. Let's get to the Final Four.
Yeah, we're shooting for, you know, Selection Sunday comes, we're all everyone's best friend again. You know, you're rooting for them at that time because, you know, what's going to bring the league up is everyone having success.
Yep.
Sure. Well, gentlemen, spirited conversation. Thank you for
always.
joining us today.
Thanks, Jason.